Hi everyone, I'm Whitney and I post all sorts of sewing and crafting tutorials here on YouTube. This video is part 2 of my lined tote bag series, and I'll be showing you how to create a lined tote bag with a featured block on the front. And I showed a similar bag in a recent vlog that I did, and you can find a link to that vlog and also any other videos or tutorials I mention in this one in the description below. We'll start by creating a pattern. First, decide what size bag you want. You will need a 1/2 inch at the top for a seam allowance. Decide how big you want the box or depth to be. Half of the depth plus a 1/2 inch will be added to the bottom, and half of the depth plus a 1/2 inch will be added to each side. You can make the circled numbers any size that you want. Use a ruler to draw out the bag front, then add on the seam allowances and everything shown before. It should look something like this when done. I'm using a paper piece block, a pair of jeans, and a sheet for my materials. I created my block using the scraps left over from the bunting I showed in my last tutorial. There will be a link below to a video that shows you how to create your own paper piecing pattern, and you can create one using that technique, or you can just fussy cut a design out of some fabric that you like, whichever works for you. I just really like using the paper piece blocks for these bags. We'll start by building the bag front. Place your featured block on your pattern to decide the placement. Grab your materials, jeans in my case, cut off the hem, and cut off a section that is at least long enough to go from the block to the pattern edge, plus seam allowances. It's better for it to be a little too long because you can trim it down later. Cut along the seam lines so you have a piece for each side. Flip and place right sides together with the block, lining up the edges. Sew to attach with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Iron to set the seam, then flip the pieces and press. Trim the top and bottom edges so you have one long narrow piece. Place the piece onto your pattern and make sure it's centered side to side. Then use the edges of the pattern as a guide to trim off the excess material. Cut off another section of the pant leg and cut it open. Trim off the edge to make it straight. Place right sides together with the previous piece, lining up the bottom edges. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then flip and iron like before. Cut the pattern out and place on top. Trim the excess off the bottom and sides. Place the piece trimmed off the bottom, right sides together with the top. Sew and iron like the previous 3 sides. Use the pattern to trim. You should now have the full completed bag front. Grab the other pant leg and cut off a piece at least long enough to cover the pattern. Cut down one of the seams to lay flat. Mine was just a little bit too small, so I added a scrap left from the other side. Place the pattern on top and trim to size. I wanted to add a layer of Pellon fusible fleece for structure, and so I can do some quilting. Cut 2 pieces from the fusible fleece using your pattern. Place the textured side down on the back side of the outer. Iron with steam to fuse. Then sew whatever quilting lines you want. I just use my regular sewing machine settings because the layers are fused together. From here on out, this bag is sewn together pretty much the same as the lined tote bag in the previous tutorial. Place your 2 outer pieces right sides together and sew down the side, bottom, and other side with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. It should look like a very basic bag. Then adjust so the seam runs down into the point. Stick a pin into the seam line and adjust until the pin comes straight out the other seam. Make sure the seam allowances are going in opposite directions to cut down on the bulk. In the opening, I said I wanted a 4-inch depth, so line a ruler up with the seam line and adjust until the correct amount of inches shows on the ruler. Mine is inches 11 through 15, so it's the 4-inch depth I needed. Mark along the ruler. Do this for both corners, then sew along the line once or twice. Trim the seam allowance. Your bag should have a bottom now. Repeat with your lining, sewing right sides together, boxing the corners, then trimming the seam allowance. Cut 2 straps from the outer and 2 from lining, measuring 2 3/4 by 24 inches. You may need to piece together the denim to have enough. Place 1 of each right sides together and sew along the long sides with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then turn right sides out. If you have trouble turning this type of strap, you can create the other kind shown in my basic lined tote tutorial. Iron the straps flat, then top stitch along every side. Okay, it's time to assemble. Place the outer in the lining right sides together, line up the side seams and tops, and pin. Lay the strap as shown, then slide in between the lining and outer layers. Use the feature block as a guide to line up the straps. Make sure the ends are sticking out 1/4 inch or so and pin. Mark a space to leave open, then sew around the top with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, leaving the marked space open. Backstitch at the beginning and end. Turn right sides out through the opening. There's a link below to a video showing this in real time. Iron the top edge, then top stitch to close the opening and finish. Because of the bulk at the side seams, I top stitched the front twice, then the back twice, and skip the side seams. So here's the finished bag. I gave this one to a friend with some other gifts in it for a baby shower. I am keeping my original Sunburst tote, and I love using it. So I hope y'all like this tutorial. I know it's a lot of steps if you do all the paper piecing and then sewing the bag together, but it's really not that difficult. It just takes a while, and it looks so amazing when you're done. So I hope you give it a try, and if you do try this or any of my other projects, don't forget to share them on social media sites and use the hashtag Whitney Sews so that I find them, and so that other people find them if they want to see what you're making from the tutorials. And I will have more videos and tutorials up soon. I'll see everyone later. Bye.